Game in Africa is insane. If you steal from a person, you're a thief. If you steal from a nation, you're a partner. While 1.4 billion people work for a tomorrow that never comes, 6 men have already bought and sold it. They don't hide in the shadows. They sit in the front row of history, protected by the very laws meant to stop them. Why? Because they've become too connected to arrest, too embedded to remove, and too useful to lose. We're ranking these 6 dangerous tycoons by their level of untouchability. First up, let's talk about Aliko Dangote. To call Dangote the richest man in Africa is an insult. He is the supply chain. He owns pieces of literally everything: cement, sugar, flour, salt. In Nigeria, if you build a house, eat processed food, or run a factory, there's a 90% chance you're paying Dangote. When a single private project costs tens of billions of dollars and supplies the nation's fuel, politics stops being politics and becomes infrastructure. So when regulators clash with Dangote, they don't push too hard because you don't jail the man your energy security depends on. He's been accused of monopolistic practices, of pricing power that crushes competitors. But nothing sticks because Dangote isn't just a businessman, he's a national stabilizer, and when a country ties its survival to one private empire, that empire becomes untouchable. Yet, Dangote is not protected by lawlessness, he is protected by necessity. Touchable in theory, untouchable in practice. So Dangote gets number 6. Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. In Egypt, power speaks the language of security. El-Sisi didn't just take power through a coup. He rebuilt the entire economy around the military, which means the military didn't just protect the state, it became the economy. Construction, food production, infrastructure, energy, entire sectors folded into military-linked enterprises. Critics aren't debated, they're removed. Opposition isn't challenged, it's erased.
Mr. President, I've spoken to a number of your countrymen who refuse to call you Mr. President because they say you're a military dictator.
Ordinary Egyptians face inflation, debt, and austerity, but questioning the system is framed as destabilization. When economic power hides behind national security, accountability becomes impossible. This creates a system where investigating leadership equals threatening the economy. However, and this is key, his untouchability is conditional. It depends on continued military loyalty, geopolitical backing, and economic stability. El-Sisi gets number 5. Now let's talk about the man who bought a country's future, Dan Gertler.
Dan Gertler is a 38-year-old Israeli billionaire.
Dan Gertler is not African by birth, but no outsider has ever controlled more African resources through fewer signatures. At one point, Gertler held the keys to the Democratic Republic of Congo, specifically its cobalt and copper. Congo supplies 70% of the world's cobalt. It's in your phone, it's in your electric car, it's in the missiles of global superpowers. If you control the cobalt, you influence the future. Investigations found that Congo may have lost over $1.3 billion in public revenue, money that could have funded hospitals, schools, roads. Instead, it vanished into shell companies, offshore trusts, and private jets. When sanctions hit him internationally, something strange happened. Waivers were issued, restrictions softened, deals continued through intermediaries, because Congo's mining sector was already built around his network. Pull him out too fast and production collapses. Global supply chains panic. So the system hesitated, and that hesitation is the real story. He bought access, presidential decree, exclusive licenses, contracts that get rewritten. Overnight, he doesn't need elections. He owns passages. And when a man controls the passages of a country that feeds the global economy, the law doesn't move fast. It negotiates. That's why he gets number 4. Now let's talk about Teodoro Obiang Mbasogo, a man who runs Equatorial Guinea like it's a simulation game. He was in power since 1979. That's long before most countries even existed in their modern form, before Nigeria discovered its oil, before the iPhone existed, and while Nelson Mandela was still in prison. He controls one of Africa's largest oil-producing countries per capita, which means he has direct access to hundreds of millions, possibly billions, into his fat bank accounts, according to reports. One of his sons, Teodoro, became famous for spending. We are not talking just mansions and Bugattis, but purchases so pointless they turn excess into waste. $80,000 for a pair of crystal-covered socks. $245,000 for a basketball signed by basketball stars. $275,000 for a backdoor glove once worn by Michael Jackson, all while serving as a government minister in a country where the population lives on an average wage of $1.25 per day. But that's the least important thing. What's far more important is that this resource gave this family leverage. Equatorial Guinea's oil flows directly into American and European markets, which means Obiang isn't just a dictator, he's a stable supplier, and stability is valuable. So valuable that human rights reports get ignored, corruption cases stall. If Obiang falls, billions in oil contracts become uncertain overnight. Markets don't like uncertainty, governments don't like energy shocks. So Obiang stays year after year, decade after decade. The country is still rich, the people are still poor, and the oil keeps flowing. Teodoro Obiang Wema Mbasogo gets number 3. Not because he's loud, but because he turned a nation into a balance sheet and made himself too expensive to remove. Morocco has a king, and Morocco has monopolies. King Mohammed VI is not just a monarch, he is the single most dominant economic actor in the country. Through a royal holding company, the king's interests quietly span banking, mining, telecoms, real estate, and mass retail. That means when Morocco grows, the king grows first. Phosphate exports, supermarkets, ports, housing. The same name appears again and again. Ordinary Moroccans feel this power without ever seeing it. Prices rise, wages stagnate, competition disappears, not because of a law, but because no serious competitor challenges the palace, and no one investigates the king's wealth. Why? Because the monarchy is constitutionally protected. The king is both head of state and commander of the faithful, politically untouchable and legally insulated. This isn't corruption and chaos, it's order, a system where power is calm, centralized, and permanent, where markets obey the crown and accountability never reaches the throne. King Mohammed VI is second. Eritrea is often called Africa's North Korea, and Isaias Afwerki, the reason why.
You never do promises.
You promised democracy?
No one here promises anybody anything. There is nothing, there is no commodity called democracy.
Afwerki has ruled Eritrea for over 3 decades. No constitution, no national elections, no independent courts. The economy doesn't belong to the public, it belongs to the state, and the state belongs to him. Eritrea operates under indefinite national service. Young people are conscripted for years, sometimes decades, forced to work for near zero pay. That labor feeds state-linked companies, while ordinary Eritreans flee the country in massive numbers. Criticism does not exist. Journalists vanish, ministers disappear. And here's why Afwerki is the most untouchable. There is no independent police force to investigate him, no judiciary to charge him, no media to expose him. The entire enforcement system answers upward to one man. Afwerki doesn't need money, popularity, or legitimacy. He controls the population, the borders, and the economy simultaneously. That's not corruption, that's absolute power, sealed off from accountability by design. That's why Isaias Afwerki is number 1. But there's one thing that needs a mention here. You can see most of them mentioned are some kind of presidents. You might think it's obvious if they possess these kinds of powers. But there are powerful individuals in Africa that even presidents fear. If you want to know who they are, the video on the screen will take you through. See you there. Thank you for watching.